Thanks for listening to the Drummers Weekly Groovecast. You can contact the show at twitter.com/DW Groovecast and through Facebook at facebook.com/Drummers Weekly Groovecast.
Good evening.
I am warning you right now, if you touch my drums, I will stab you in the neck with a knife.
Ain't a bucket. Ain't a bucket.
Mom!
Take it easy. Lower it.
I'm not gonna lower it. I have to do this now.
I don't mind you playing it, but lower it.
Everything get straightened out?
Oh, we had a problem. I mean, we tried to do everything we could.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what I mean.
Next!
Little trouble there. You're rushing.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah!
Hey everybody, Phil here from the Drummers Weekly Groovecast. Happy Monday to everyone. Today we have another special episode. We have an interview for you. You know, we don't do that many interviews here at the show, but when we do them, we want to bring you something new. We want to bring you something special that you haven't heard before, and I think today is no exception. Today we're interviewing the great R&B pop fusion drummer, Lil John Roberts. If you don't know Lil John by name, I'd bet you a steak dinner that you've heard him play before, because this guy's gig resume is off the charts. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of biographical information about him, because John does a great job detailing that during the show, but just some of the essentials that you'll want to know is he's originally from Philadelphia. He grew up there with a very musical family. He learned some drumming from his uncles. As he grew up, he had a chance encounter with Wynton Marsalis, which led him into playing in an ensemble that Wynton put together, which in a roundabout way led him to studying at the Berklee School of Music up in Boston. After that, John found his way down south, eventually to Atlanta, where he started establishing his professional career with great R&B pop artists like Monica, the Goody Mob, Escape, and that eventually led to his major gigs like Janet Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and then some of the great fusion artists of our time, George Howard, Herbie Hancock, and George Duke. All right, so we're not going to belabor the point anymore, because this is a great interview, and he's very forthcoming about what it takes to be successful in the music business. So we're going to go ahead and lead into this intro with a track that John and I discussed that he would like for us to play. That's a good example of his playing, and it just happens to be a track that he recorded with one of his musical mentors, Mr. George Duke. So without further delay, we present to you Lil John Roberts. We're here with Lil John Roberts, and we're going to jump right into it today. And I think most people who are listening to this probably know a little bit about John and know that he's originally from Philadelphia. And so we want to touch a little bit on your background, man, and about where you came up in Philly and how you got started playing. So if you could just tell us, how old were you when you first started playing drums?
Probably about 7. Just messing around. All of my uncles played drums. My dad's a pastor, so we all played in church first.
That's cool, man. So when you started doing that, when you first started playing, did you have any lessons with like your uncles, or did you take any formal lessons from anybody?
At the earlier age, it was just hanging out with them mostly. But then as I started, progressing in school and everything like that, I started going to Settlement Music School. in Philly.
Okay.
Christian McBride, he's another good friend of mine, and Joey DeFrancesco. We had a trio together when we were younger. So we all used to go and study at Settlement and play All City Jazz Band, all that kind of stuff in Philly.
Is it like a performing arts high school? Or?
Yeah, I went to Overbrook High School, which was like kind of like a brother to creative and performing arts, where Joey and Chris went. Boys to Men went there, The Roots, Questlove.
Nice.
Yeah, so we were all coming up in Philly at the same time.
You know, it's a pretty good time to go ahead and mention that
It was really fertile.
Yeah, the Lil John is one of a lineage of like very important drummers that have come out of Philadelphia, and he mentioned Joey DeFrancesco, and one of the kind of unsung heroes of that Philadelphia scene that's not really known that much outside of like people who know about Joey DeFrancesco is Byron Landon.
Yeah,
Man, that guy can play, man.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
I hung out with Byron a lot, man. I learned a lot watching and listening to him play. He's a great drummer, man. Yeah.
is he still actually in Philadelphia?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
There's
cool,
another
man.
guy that plays with Branford.
Uh,
Dude, that is just slaying.
Justin Faulkner. Mm-hmm.
Good Lord, man.
Yeah.
I always talk about New Orleans, something in the water. Philadelphia's got it too, man.
Absolutely.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got some of those hacks like Philly Joe Jones,
Ah,
Mickey Roker,
I mean,
Joe Chambers.
has-beens. I'm talking about people with influence, that help the genres grow.
I used to go watch Mickey Roker play at Ortlieb's in Philly.
I actually saw him at Ortlieb's, man,
Okay.
one time. Yeah, I did a gig. I guess it was, it was almost 20 years ago, man. I played at that Ritz-Carlton downtown and then went to Ortlieb's. Ortlieb's is not there anymore, is it?
there anymore,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So, like, as far as your uncles and people you were influenced by growing up, were they involved in that seminal R&B scene that Philadelphia is known for? Or?
Not really. Like, they didn't really go but so far. It was really church. One of my uncles was in the Army, so he played in the Army band. That was the one that I really was inspired by the most. Mm-hmm. He had a great style, funky and everything like that. But, yeah, they all just used to listen to a lot of Ohio players and stuff like that.
All right.
In the midst of playing church music, too. So, I kind of got into the R&B stuff quick through them.
Okay.
Were they also influenced or either play on or know any of the folks that were part of that movement in the 70s, like the Sound of Philadelphia?
They didn't have anything to do with that, but they were around it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But Questlove, his family were more into like the scene.
I gotcha.
I think his dad and all of those people were like actually, playing gigs and doing recordings and stuff.
Cool, man. So as you kind of progressed and you went along, there had to be a time where it's like you came to the realization of like, man, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to study this stuff. I'm going to have to, get some formal lessons, that type thing. How old were you when it was like, okay, now I've got to, I'm going to learn, the rudiments. I'm going to learn, the different methods that come along with it, reading, that kind of stuff. When did that come to you?
Yeah, that was probably around 15.
Gotcha.
I was going to this pretty cool middle school that had a good music program called Baldy Middle School. And then I started meeting the people for high schools and stuff. So all the adjudicators in Philadelphia were kind of like recruiting us, early. Yeah. I met Dr. George Allen, and he's the one that influenced me to come to Overbrook High School. Dr. George Allen knows everybody. And, he'd bring Sun Ra to the school and Went Marcellus, the whole Ellis family, whole Marcellus family, Ellis and everybody. And that's when he pulled me aside and said, you got to really jump on this stuff, like even more than what you're doing. So that's when he got me into more reading and researching more stuff, going deeper into drumming and all the aspects of it, checking out Max Roach, Art Blakey, Philly Joe Jones, Elton Jones. He had me like opening my world up to that.
Gotcha. Now, there's a good story that I read in your bio where I guess it was probably when you were your latter part of your high school years, where you had an encounter with Wynton Marsalis, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
And that eventually led to you being put into an ensemble, right? Mm-hmm. Which kind of led to you ending up going to Berklee. Mm-hmm. Tell our listeners just a little bit about how that happened.
Okay, so from Dr. George Allen, when I was talking about in high school, inviting Wynton and all the family to the school, we just took to each other and became really cool. And he was watching and seeing all the things that I was doing. And said, man, I like that cat John, playing. I want to pull him in on a project eventually. And Herlin Raleigh was playing at the time. And it was like Herlin Raleigh and Jeff Tane Watts were swapping back and forth, on gigs and stuff. And Wynton just kind of took me under his wing and was like, come to the shows, and hang out. I want you to watch Tane, see everything he does, or Herlin, whoever, even Jason Marcellus, his little brother. That's when he reached out and said that he wanted me to play along with Chris McBride. And they asked Joey too, but Joey couldn't do everything because Joey was actually getting ready to leave and start playing with Miles. Oh, yeah. Because Miles came into town and met Joey and Chris and all like that. So that turned into a whole other thing. Byron Landon was playing with Joey at that time too. So, it was just a whirlwind of things happening. So Joey couldn't make that a gig that we were doing, which was the Duke Ellington Youth Orchestra that went and put together. So we were playing all of that crazy sweet, the sweet Nutcracker sweet music.
Right, yeah.
And so we had a guy named Fareed Barron, who was also a great keyboard player in Philly that we pulled in for that group too.
Was it just people from Philadelphia or like kind of more like the McDonald's thing?
Yeah, it was Philly, New York. It was kind of like a regional thing.
Gotcha.
Walter Blanding was playing sax in the band. It was a few cats that were like the young lions that were coming up and about to blow up. Because Walter left Philly and went to New York and just went nuts.
Now, how did that? There's some kind of a link between that band that went and had you guys in, and then how you got to Berklee, right? How did that actually work?
Okay, so that's a pretty cool story because we were invited to come play at Berklee at the BPC, the Berklee Performing Arts Center, and after that performance was over, we met all the dignitaries at the school, the president, everybody, and they all, they really welcomed us. And at the end of the night, they presented all of us with scholarships to come to the school.
Oh, wow. No audition in it? That was your audition,
That was the audition,
right?
right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, it was a phenomenal band, man. I wish I had video or something of that group. I'm sure somebody has it. Maybe Dr. George Allen might have something in his archives. But if you got the chance to listen to that high school age band, it was 22 of us. We sounded a lot like that Duke Ellington Orchestra, Yeah. And Wynton was very strict on, how we approached that music and everything. Like he was on our butts,
Yeah.
Y'all need to really check this stuff out. If we didn't sound good, he would tell us, y'all sound sad, man.
Yeah.
But it was good for us,
So what year was that?
When was that? I was 16. So that was about 87.
Gotcha. So you actually had then a couple more years of school. You got the scholarship, but you had a couple more years of school before you could actually go do that. Then.
Yeah, I think I was in 10th grade then.
So when you got to Berklee, who were some of the different people that you studied with, and tell us just your general experience there.
Okay, so it's funny because the teachers that I was directed to have lessons with and all that kind of stuff, I didn't really like them. I'm not going to say their names.
Yeah.
But I really didn't get what I wanted to get from those guys, and I don't knock them at all like that, but the lessons, it felt like I was teaching them.
I got you.
I'm asking them questions about how to do things and all, and they really couldn't do it, and I'm like, all right. So then I'd go over and hang out with John Ramsey in his room. And, I always used to walk by and hear him practicing or listening to some really cool Blakey stuff or Elvin stuff. And, I'd just peep my head in the door and he's, come on in, man, come hang out. And I learned so much more stuff hanging out with John Ramsey than I have learned with any of the teachers that I was there. And it was just because of preference and what I was looking for at the time. I was looking for something, a certain thing I was looking for, and I knew it once I heard it from somebody playing or whatever. I would go see Tony Williams and all those cats play at Scullers and Regatta Bar or any of those venues in Boston.
Yeah,
just to get that lesson or get to hear what it was that I was searching for. But Ramsey was really close to showing me some of the stuff, especially the swing stuff. And on top of that, I was playing in Billy Pierce's ensemble, and Billy Pierce played sax with Blakey.
And Tony too, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
right.
it was the Blakey ensemble with, Billy Pierce as your teacher. Like, how
Sounds miserable.
Can't get any better than that, right?
Awesome. Yeah, I love
So,
it.
hands-on playing that stuff and him showing us what Blakey would do and say and all that kind of stuff. That was like a great class, man. I got more out of that than anything else, really.
John, I'm glad you brought up John Ramsey. John Ramsey is absolutely one of the unsung music educators. He is one of our last remaining direct links to Alan Dawson also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that guy, he studied with Dawson for years, and then, he put out that book about 10 or 12 years ago that is essentially, it's kind of a compilation of all of the things that Dawson had put together regarding the syncopation book.
Right.
And then he put the rudimental ritual, in there as well and all that good stuff. So I'm glad to hear that about John Ramsey. Now, how did you feel about like the classroom work and stuff that you had to do out there? Like things like theory and ear training and that kind of stuff.
It was actually intriguing.
Years,
But my brain was elsewhere.
That's cool.
If I knew then what I know now, I would have taken much more advantage of those classes. But, I still learned a lot of stuff, even if my attention span wasn't as much as it should have been. But ear training and all that kind of stuff, that really helped out a lot. What was another class we had? It was one class that I really liked. I can't remember what it was, though. But ear training was one of the top ones, though.
Yeah.
Just to tune in on songs.
You could see the value of it.
Exactly.
It's hard to, we're all different in that what we're going to take in and gain from, but seeing some kind of progress is awesome. As far as, we've talked sometimes about school. A lot of times the peers, your fellow students, become lifelong connections and all that. And who from that period do you still stay in contact with? Do you get do gigs with? I mean, that kind of thing.
We're all still in touch with each other in a way. Chris Laughlin, he's a great buddy of mine. He's from Philly as well. He's a bass player. He plays with Brian McKnight still as his music director and all. Kenya Hathaway was there with me, Layla's sister. We do gigs in LA with Ricky Minor and things like that, a lot of award shows and stuff. She did the Stevie Wonder tribute that we did 2 years ago, I think, for the Grammys. That won an Emmy. And there's different people out there. Tarek Akoni, guitar player, he's doing really well. Taku Harano, who went to school with me as well at the same time. He's playing percussion on a lot of stuff. Like, a lot of cats are doing good stuff. Dave DeLone, he wasn't there when we were there, but he was there when Layla and a lot of them were there, Delfeo, right before us. And it's funny because before I went to Berklee, I got a chance to hang out with them first, just visiting the school just to see if I really wanted to go there.
Right.
And we would stay there for a couple of days, whatever like that. So I'd hang out with Layla and we'd all have food and stuff and they, joke and but I learned so much from them before. It was like a prep for me to go to Berklee. Delfeo, we go to his room and he'd play stuff all day long. Man, listen to this. Y'all need to check this out. He was just like an educator in his own room, but Delfeo was known for doing things like that. If you walked in there, you're going to have a class in Delfeo's room of just audio and music and videos. He had a stack of stuff up against his wall in his dorm. We just sit there and, man, check this out, man. Listen to Blakey on this. Listen to Elvin on this, just whatever. What do you want to listen to today? He had just a stack of tapes and stuff like that. You just pick whatever you wanted,
That's just invaluable. Like, as much as a hands-on lesson with a master teacher, that is equally as valid and can define so much in your playing, so that kind of experience, you can't necessarily purchase it.
No.
But experiencing it is a great thing in a school setting.
Yeah, outside of the classroom, I took full advantage of those opportunities.
Very cool.
As well as seeing Alan Dawson around town. Roy Haynes was hanging out a lot. I would play at Raoul's Jazz Club. Matheny played there a lot. Everybody played there. I used to work the door for Tommy Campbell, and in exchange for, I was supposed to get a lesson, which I never got.
Yeah.
But watching the show was a lesson all by itself.
Right.
How are Tommy's shoulders these days?
his shoulders or from playing them cymbals so
So
much.
you would be like, whoa.
Man, I
way
tried
up
to
there.
sit in on his set and it would never work, man. I mean, I tried my best, but those cymbals right in front of my face, I was like,
And he was just so natural with it.
Oh,
It's
man.
like, it's
he's
fascinating.
such a lanky guy, you know.
Yeah. So you would be able to see those guys play regularly as
Oh,
well?
yeah.
That's awesome.
What's his name? David Gottlieb?
Danny Gottlieb.
Danny Gottlieb. Yeah. I
Matheny's
see all
guy.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was playing with Matheny at the time, and then I think Paul Wardico was coming in a little after that. But
Yeah.
I'd see all those guys, man. Riles was like my hang because I did gigs there. Giovanni, he played some with us, you know, because he was teaching at the time as well, and then off the road. Giovanni Hidalgo.
Yeah, man.
I think that's his first name you should have known,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Raul's one of my hangouts, man. So I got to see a lot of shows for free. You know, just hang at the bar, talk to Roy Haynes, let him, you know, do what he did. And, you know, we watch cats play all night.
That's awesome, man. You know, we've talked many times on this show about the college experience that, you know, they teach the same theory at Berklee as they do at Eastman, as they do at University of Georgia, as they do at, you know, any other school. But the thing that separates a lot of these high-powered music schools like Berklee from some of the other state schools is that you just have the wealth of the riches of the amount of students that are like-minded, you know, that when you get there, that you end up, like you said, you end up working with some of these people the rest of your life.
Right.
You know, you surround yourself with the right kind of people. You surround yourself in, you know, a vibrant music community like Boston, where you got all these, you got Scullers, Regatta Bar, and such and such. You can see these people play all the time, man. That's one of the main things that really separates Berklee from a lot of other places.
I
So,
mean, that's why I like
yeah.
Boston, period. You know,
Yeah.
just in a whole, in general, just being in Boston was a teacher all by itself. You know, it was a lesson by itself. Playing at Wally's, you know, I started the funk night at Wally's.
All right.
Yeah, when Wally was alive, you know, he was a stickler of just straight ahead jazz, no extra nothing. You know, I don't want nothing else to hear but straight ahead jazz. You know, and he was strict about that. And then one night I came to Wally and his nephews and all. We were all cool. You know, we're still cool now. And I told him, I said, man, y'all want to make some more money, man? You know, I was, you know, shooting a proposal like, let me do a funk night, just one night. Let me do it, and I promise you, you're gonna make double the money that you make, you know, on your regular nights.
Right.
Well, they let me have a funk night. It was, you know, it was not just funk. It was Herbie Hancock, you know, Hair Hunters kind of stuff. Richie Goods was the bass player. Jeff Lockhart was the guitar player. Anthony Wanzi was the keyboard player, and we'd have all the cats come in and sit in. That night went so crazy. They were like, Wally said, from now on, funk night. Wednesday night, funk night.
Yeah.
So ever since then, there's been a funk night there.
So you were at Berklee for how long? How many years were you there?
I just went for 2 years. I was in Boston for 3 full
Gotcha.
years, but the two of those years I was at school.
And so that last year that you were in Boston, you were just gigging, right? Just working up there.
Yeah.
And then did you, after that third year, come straight to Atlanta after that, or what happened then?
Okay, so down the timeline, I met Eric Essex at school.
Gotcha.
Great guitar player. We had a band. Well, he had a band already, and then, you know, I jumped in on it, and then we recorded a project. You know, Modern Man was the name of the band. We did a album called Third Degree Burn. Great record, still till today. He just gave me an option, like, hey man, you know, I'm graduating from the school. I'm going back home to Birmingham, where he's from. And if you're interested, because he heard me saying a lot, like, I'm ready to go. I want to do something. I think I want to tour now. You know, I was really ready to get out of school and start working as a musician, as a professional musician. And he said, if you want, man, y'all could come down my way and we could start touring and doing stuff with this record that we just recorded. And we all were like, cool. We packed our stuff and rolled to Birmingham. Myself, Melvin Butler, who's a great saxophone player, Sean Michael Ray, who's from Birmingham too. He was already there. And Matt Rohde, keyboard player that lives in L.A. now. So we all decided to go to Birmingham with Eric, and then we stayed there for a while. I'd say about 6 months we stayed there. When we did some gigs in Atlanta, and when I came over here, I was like, oh, Atlanta's popping.
Yeah.
So, Birmingham was a little slower, and coming from the north, I was just like, oh, the South is like so slow, and I needed a little bit more upbeat. So when I was introduced to the Atlanta scene and everything, I said, okay, I'm gonna go on head over there. So I moved to Atlanta then.
Gotcha. And what year was that roughly?
94.
94. Gotcha. Now, at that time, I have a feeling that's when you met our mutual friend, probably Avery Johnson at that time. Is that right?
Yep.
And because I moved here just after that,
Okay.
I got here like around 95 or so.
Okay.
So when you moved to Atlanta, I think pretty much everybody knows that Atlanta's got a pretty good music scene, especially from the standpoint from the R&B side of things. So when you got here to Atlanta, how did you kind of establish yourself as far as like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is, these are the people that I met, that type thing?
Well, I noticed in the music scene here, there was a void that wasn't filled.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is missing here. There's something missing. And I said, okay, I'm gonna just put a band together and just start making that thing happen. And that's how I handpicked these cats, as well as Avery Johnson on bass.
Right.
El Rock, the keyboard player, producer. He was producing at the time, so he wasn't really trying to go out and play much, but he was a great musician. And I was like, El Rock, let's get you out the studio and let's do some gigs and stuff. Phil Davis, we wind up playing with George Duke later on together, and Rochelle Farrell, and Billy Odom, who's another Atlanta rock guitarist. And so yeah, that was a perfect fit. And we started, playing at places around town. And we had a staple spot called the Yin Yang Cafe, where we played every Thursday.
That's where that low-down, dirty dog Eddie Irons took me to see you the first time. Wrecked me. Thanks a lot, Eddie.
Yeah.
That's funny because Eddie went and hired me to fill in for him with Brick at that time, that same time period too, because then he was starting to, do sound and do front of house. So that was great to play for him with Brick too. So just Atlanta, the history of the music scene here from SOS Band and, meeting. Well, I met Sonny Emery when I was younger in Philly when he was playing with David Sanborn. I just happened to sneak backstage and, got up to him and was like, hey, Mr. Emery, whatever. And I asked him to play this certain beat that he was playing. I heard in soundcheck, and then he broke it down to me. And after that, we became best friends.
Gotcha.
And when I moved to Atlanta, matter of fact, one of the first places I went and played was at his clinic at, where's he from? What school? High school.
It's that same performing arts.
Yeah, it's Douglas or something. I think Douglas High School here. So he had a clinic. He told me, I want you to come sit in with the band tonight. I want everybody to see that you're in town, whatever. So that was like an introduction for me to Atlanta, was sitting in at his clinic.
All right.
Marcus Williams was playing, so it was all the cats there. Derek Scott, it was like Sam Sims, Ronnie Garrett, all of like the heads, the guys, the cats of Atlanta, was there that night. So it was a great introduction for me to meet everybody from that.
So was that when you saw The Void with, I know the Chronicle is that kind of, was the Funk Jam in Boston sort of a model for where you were taking, and that's what you felt was missing?
Yeah.
That kind of thing?
Definitely.
I see that perfect connection in that.
I mean, it started a whole nother movement of sound in Atlanta. I would like to say.
I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, from Philly though, it started in Philly.
Okay.
And that whole jam band kind of funk mixed with fusion and jazz. We started that in Philly first before I left, and mixing the straight ahead stuff with some funk. Even Chris McBride, he'd walk around listening to James Brown a lot of the times. Till this day, that's his
some of that. Hip hop influence was coming in. I know in the Chronicle there was some of that thing too. So that fusion of stuff, absolutely. I was here. I came here in '96, and when I heard that, I thought this is perfect for this. And of course the players you had didn't hurt.
Right. And
Very
then
cool.
it's crazy because at the same time the Roots were blossoming in Philly, so it was same thing was happening at the same time in two different cities. Mm-hmm. So we were like. I could probably say we were like the Roots of Atlanta at that time.
I get it.
We just hadn't had a record out and all, and the Roots had their first record out, so they were on their way, and they were being known as the hip hop, live hip hop band, of the country.
And then the Chronicle kind of grew into some cool stuff too, like the Funk Jazz Cafe, or sort of the nucleus of that.
Yeah. Now, I started that with Jason Orr in his apartment, from him writing things down, the ideas, and I told him I would handle the music side of it. So, if people don't know what that is, Funk Jazz Cafe was a big event that we had every year in Atlanta that fused all kind of different arts together. Yeah. And the Chronicle was the house band for that.
So how long did the Chronicle actually exist during the 90s?
From 94 to about 2000 maybe, because the Yin Yang closed at 98.
Right.
And then they reopened with different owners, which, it wasn't the same vibe. These cats that first had it were from France, and Andre from France, and Paulie and Reggie. So those guys, they had some really cool, creative ideas for their spot. And a lot of that stuff kind of changed when the new owners took over. It wasn't the same approach. So, things kind of got a little different. And, all of us were just like, kind of over it at that point. At least we recorded one record called Making Moves in 98. And so at least we had a chance to document some of that stuff. But after that, things kind of started fizzling out with that.
Gotcha. Now, you really got yourself established very well locally in Atlanta. Like how you got that. You talked about how you met Sonny and went to the clinic and all that stuff, and kind of got yourself known with the local players here. Mm-hmm. Now, from that, though, you started hitting the national, and not the international playing scene at that time.
Yep.
So tell us about like your when you got your first major gig.
Right. Okay. So I was hanging out a lot with Jermaine Dupri in Dallas, Austin. Yeah. And that's how it took me into the whole R&B realm of Atlanta and the artists that were coming out of here. Because at that time period, it was a big, recording city, and, the record labels were here, LaFace Records, Rowdy Records, a lot of different smaller record labels were here. So it was a big part of the industry at that time. Yeah. Outkast was coming out. Goody Mob was coming out. I was music directing for Monica with Dallas Austin. He asked me to do that. So a lot of those guys that didn't know how to pull the live aspects together for their artists will come to me and ask me to help them do that.
Gotcha. So tell us, what does it mean to be a music director for Monica? What are your duties for that?
Well, put the band together for one thing. We had to program the show.
Yeah.
I remember one night we had, it was a nightmare. We were playing the Midtown Music Festival, and the disc got fried for the whole show. Yeah. I don't know how, because I hired a guy to actually do that, because that was something that I didn't do. So, I humbly said, let me hire somebody that can pull this off, that can actually program a show. And, I was in there for the process of it, but just doing it, he did that. So we did all the homework and stuff, all the work and rehearsals and stuff for this show. And we get there to the stage, and for some reason the disc, we had floppy disks then, got fried, so we couldn't do the show. So what happened is that they canceled the show and said that we would come back either the next day or the day after or something. We went straight to Dallas's studio. He said, do whatever y'all got to do to get this files and all this stuff back. We basically had to start from scratch again. We had a full hour and a half probably show programmed, and we had nothing after the floppy disk got fried. So it was a nightmare. We literally slept at dark, overnight doing that stuff.
It's amazing this guy didn't think to back that up, with another disc. Isn't that...
Bro,
isn't that amazing?
That was my whole argument that day. You didn't back it up? Yeah. You only had one floppy disk. You could have just easily backed it up in rehearsal.
All that work.
He's like, I just didn't get to it. It was a lot going on. I remember something was going on with him at that time. I don't know if he was having a baby or something was happening in the hospital with somebody with him. And, he just got caught up in that and just forgot to back the floppy disk up.
The other amazing side note on that is that an entire show fit on a floppy disk. Isn't that amazing?
Right. My has technology grown.
I'll say.
I'm telling you, man. So the Monica gig, that was what, mid-90s? Mm-hmm. That was
about, that was 94, same year. A lot of stuff happened in 94 when I got here. It was like, it happened so fast, But yeah, Monica, I Jermaine Dupri asked me to play with Escape at that same year. And it was funny because I didn't know that Jermaine Dupri and Dallas Austin had a little rivalry with each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just new, fresh on the scene. So I'm just like hanging out with Jermaine one day, and then I'm hanging out with Dallas the next day. And then we all show up somewhere one night, and his crew is there, and his crew is over here. And I'm in the middle like, yo, what's up, what's up? And I'm over here with them like, yo, what's up? So they're both looking at each other like, well, whose crew is he in? Like, and it was funny, man. It was so funny. And then I realized, like, oh, there's beef here. Like, I'm in the middle of a huge beef with these guys. So later on, they got cool again. But
you were the peacemaker.
I might have been the peacemaker.
Let's just say you were.
Right.
That worked good for me.
Lil John Roberts was like a Renaissance man. He brought the new funk fusion scene to Atlanta and was the peacemaker between beefing parties.
Nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Love it, man.
So, all right, let's go ahead and we're going to be remiss if we don't jump into this right now. Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and talk about we'll call them just the big gigs, man.
Okay.
Now, so somehow along the line you got involved with Janet Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had a relationship for 20 years with her.
Yeah.
So something's going well.
Right. I'm doing something right, evidently.
You're doing something right, you know? So tell us how did that come apart? Because come to being, because I mean when you talk about gigs, there's really not any higher level gig than that.
Yeah.
So
outside of her brother.
Yeah, right.
Which I almost did that too.
You played with Jermaine?
Tito.
I couldn't resist.
It's Tito, man.
But you got to throw that in there.
There it is.
This is a drum
Berklee
cast.
trained. Do you hear how clean that was?
So yeah, being connected with a lot of the cats here at that time, I met Sam Sims, great bass player, who was playing in the band at that time too. Daryl Smith, who later on moved to Atlanta, who's here now, was her keyboardist. Rex Salas, I met Rex through Sam, and it's funny because this is how it went. All the pop guys that were playing for Michael and Janet and everybody under the sun were playing with the jazz groups as well, like the at the time contemporary jazz groups. Now it's smooth jazz, but back then it was funkier edge and everything. So George Howard, who's from Philadelphia, they were all playing with him. Sam was playing in his band. Sonny played in his band. Daryl Smith played it. Mars Pleasures. And all these guys are playing in Earth, Wind, and Fire and all like that too. But when they're off the road, they're playing with some of the jazz artists too. So long story short, I met all of these guys through that style of music first. And then it tied into the pop arena where they're like, okay, Janet, she needs another drummer. They right away, put me in the pot. Like, we should get Lil John for this.
Who was her drummer prior to you?
Jonathan Moffett.
Oh, so it was Sugarfoot Moffett. Then. Gotcha.
Yep.
So he was going between the siblings there, huh?
Right.
Yeah,
and Jonathan was busy with everybody too at the time, so he was still doing Madonna and he was doing George Michael and
owned it.
Yeah, Elton John. Like he was doing very well for himself. So I think he got called to leave with probably George Michael or somebody like that at the time in the middle of the Janet tour in '94. And so that's when they said we should try to get Lil John up in this, and we think he's the right guy for this. He's available and, I'm not available, but like ready, prepared, to do something like this. Because that was my first introduction to a huge pop tour like that. So I had no idea what I was really getting into.
and that's what we want to touch on next, man. Did after you got the recommendation, did you have to go in and audition for it? So it's just like
audition was at rehearsal.
I got you.
Yeah, I had already pretty much had the gig, because they were already talking.
Yours to lose.
Right. And Janet had already heard about my reputation from working with Jermaine and all. She already knew them too. So, she had heard about me playing with Monica and Goody Mob and Escape and all. So, she was like, let's give it a go, And it's funny because I learned the show off of a DAT tape of one of their live shows. And I had a DAT tape and I had a VHS tape to watch the actual show to see what was going on in the performance. And I just basically locked myself in the room and just watched it over and over and over again until I learned the whole show from it.
they give you any charts or anything?
None of that.
Did you write anything out, or are you just like, hey man, I'm just going to learn this thing?
I just learned the hell out of it. And it's funny because Rex, when I went to LA like a few weeks before rehearsal started, I was at Rex's house for a good few days or whatever, and he just kept coming home and, you listening to the stuff, you learning everything, you know, like he's just really like, you know, trying to make sure that I'm studying this stuff, you know. But in my mind, I'm like, I already know the show. Because, I mean, I was used to learning stuff like that.
And this opportunity, I guess, going to be...
Just not on that level. I was like, it was, you know, big, you know, to do it from when I was doing it at Berklee or in Atlanta and, you know, the smaller groups I was playing with at the time. And then doing it at this level, I really, like I said, I really didn't realize how huge this opportunity was until I finally got in there and was like, oh wow. Here's my new drums. And I'm like, I finally had a full endorsement with Pearl Drums at the time. So this was my first like big tour set and everything on the rack and, you know, just the whole nine, just everything was times 10. So imagine a 23-year-old boy, like, you know, a young man going on this huge, you know, production. So it was overwhelming.
As far as just kind of give us an idea of the difference between Janet's tour in 1995 and today. Technology, you know, the travel, all that aspect. Has it changed? Is it pretty similar?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. I mean, Janet's thing is just all across the board the same. You know, the accommodations, everything is red carpet pretty much. Mm-hmm. Of course, the technology is different because, you know, we have Pro Tools and all that stuff now. Back then, I think they were using Performer maybe or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not really hip, but
some guys still do. They like how it lines up. Interesting that. Okay. A friend of mine he worked with the Eagles. He still uses DP, and I was like,
okay,
what?
Yeah, I mean, we had cats like Michael McKnight, who was doing Madonna and all that stuff. So we had all the top cats like doing the production in on it. Terry Lawless, who's been on tour with everybody, he was our programmer. So, you know, definitely the technology got much better now than it was then. That was my first time playing to a click track and all that kind of stuff live with, you know, pre-recorded instruments and all that kind of stuff, background vocals or whatever. So I had to figure out how to play a live show and follow the click and still make it feel natural,
right?
Without it sounding sterile and tight and computer sounding or whatever. So I learned on the spot how to play with a human feel on top of some tight tracks.
Right.
Because, I mean, you could be loose, but not too loose.
Right.
You know, you had to still be right on top of stuff. You know, everybody's dancing to it and the lights, everything is all synced to it. So I really realized how big of a responsibility it was for me as a drummer on that gig.
So I'm sorry.
All I was going to say, I was going to step back 1 second because John and I have actually done a show on this, and it comes up. It seems like it comes up about every 3 or 4 shows. I just want to draw attention to something that John said a little while ago, is about how much he prepared for this gig. Man, we go overboard talking about preparing for gigs, that you need to be prepared for gigs, that you need to work on stuff, and you need to be prepared for gigs, because you know as well as I do, there's a lot of cats that don't do that. And so I just wanted to step back real quick and say that.
And every gig.
Yeah. You need to be
not
prepared
just Janet Jackson.
Like any gig.
You might play with that cat on some throwaway wedding gig who's going to get you on Janet Jackson's tour.
Exactly.
Have it together.
Yeah.
You never know who's in the audience watching, whatever you are doing. You know, like we talked about, we talked about before we got on, started this with the Larry Carlton gig this weekend that I played. We didn't have a rehearsal, you know, and Larry, we've never met before. He's heard about me through George Duke and all them back in the day, but we've never played with each other on stage. So he just trusted that I was going to learn everything, you know, like a lot of these cats do when they call you. They're trusting that you're going to do your homework, and hopefully if you can read charts and all, you could just bring the charts up and follow the music that way. So I definitely prepared myself for Saturday and Sunday, and I think I did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
And lost in that, sometimes people forget that the person who recommended you we have to be mindful of too.
Oh yeah.
Because it's completely unfair for them.
Right. Man, thanks to Marcus Finney, who's from Nashville. And
Yeah, man.
He plays with Carlton a lot, and he told him immediately, man, if you're playing in Atlanta, you need somebody, you need to call Lil John. You know, so I appreciate him for that call.
And respect them enough to come prepared.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's what I expect cats to do. If I'm, you know, referring them to something, I'm like, hey, man, I referred the sax player on this gig. And, you know, we've done some TV shows together, but we really hadn't done a whole lot of stuff together. But he's Kirk Whalum's cousin, too. So I was like, all right, let me give him a shot, because Kirk, you know, he said he wanted somebody like a Kirk Whalum type player for this. And Jamel Mitchell is his name. He came through and just showed out, man. He was so prepared. And I texted him today. I said, hey, man, I just want to thank you for being prepared and not embarrassing my ass on this gig.
Yeah.
And it's such a big part of it.
Yeah.
You know, and we need to be respectful of our peers in that sense.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, if you want to get a call again.
Yeah, no doubt. So back to the Janet thing real quick. Mentioning technology, you know, I know some of the especially like the big R&B tours, you know, it can differ in regards to what you're hearing, all that. Are you getting vocal cues or not, as far as show like bridge 2, 3, 4, things like that?
Sometimes we do that. If we have a new song that we haven't had time to really get under our belt, we call cheat slates.
Sure.
Cheat slates there, definitely. I mean, nobody's gonna hear it but us. So we put that there, bridge, you know, second verse, you know, we make sure it's lined up in there. And if, you know, there's the break, you know, there's some songs where there's crazy breaks in there. It's just too much to remember at the last minute. So we'll put breaks in there, like breakdown or vocal breakdown or whatever, just anything for everybody to just be able to get through it until we all learn it like fully.
Yeah. I've had a couple people also like say, especially a tour that's booked for a long period of time, sometimes they'll do it so the autopilot factor doesn't become a problem where, you know, 6 months down the road, you know, you're getting a cue still. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I think some people it might be a control thing, but I could see that too. You're doing show after show after show. We're all guilty of it on occasion of just kind of veering off. It's like bridge. Oh, thank you. You know, so
right. Yeah,
that's the beauty of technology in that sense. But definitely in a new tune, you know, you can't go up there and
not in front of
why
10,000 plus
help?
people.
Yeah.
So
good stuff.
So, John, now talking a little bit about the business aspect, the business side of this stuff. This is something that I think a lot of people would like to be interested or would like to hear about. And you certainly don't have to give numbers on this, but how do you end up let's say just negotiating your compensation on this?
Right.
I'm sure you have to deal with management, you know, in that time. How do you approach that kind of thing?
That's a good question. Like, some groups come with you with the offer that they're offering, and there's no negotiation there. And then some groups come with a possible, you know, we negotiate for a minute, you know, and see what's comfortable for me. Like, it's funny because like Stevie Wonder's gig I did last year, and you know, Stevie is straightforward with his pay, how he pays his band and all that kind of stuff. But you're dealing with his accountant, you know, so you gotta negotiate with the accountant. You're not talking to Stevie. Like, at the end of the day, he knows about everything that's going on because that's how Stevie is. I mean, flights, all that stuff. Stevie is hands on with everything with his business. It's like old Motown mentality, yeah. And with that comes some old, you know, ways of doing things too as well.
Do you primarily do those gigs on like a weekly pay, or is it more of like a per gig type thing?
No, it's a weekly salary. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. And one of the things that John and I have talked about is that when we've done certain negotiations of different things, there are other aspects other than just pay that we can sometimes negotiate with. Like, do you sometimes negotiate things regarding, like, you know, lodging rooms, per diems, flights, exactly, kind of stuff also.
You know, after a while, if you've been in the business for a long time, you really start realizing there's other perks that you can ask for.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm 6'2", and I can't fly to London, you know, in an economy seat the whole way. You know? Yeah. So I ask for a business class seat, if not first class, you know, if they're offering that. Some do, some don't, you know, but they'll let you know up front. But you got to ask those things ahead of time.
It's not going to give them to you. For the
No, nobody's going to just offer you, a first class seat. They'll try to see how cheap they can get you for. Of course, that's their job, is to keep the budget down,
Right.
But and I try to tell a lot of these cats that are touring now, like, hey man, you can ask for this and ask for that, and at least put it out there if they value you that much for that band, So yeah, I'll ask for a business class seat in a second.
Yeah, but that's good to know, man. I think that's valuable information, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're the drummers too, and we need our body needs to be, cool when we get to the destination. Yeah, we can't be having back problems and stuff, and they expecting you to play 2-3 hours, full and strong. And well, hey man, I need a comfortable seat to get to the gig. It all makes sense.
So now, walk us through what it's like back in the day and even today, what it's like when you get ready to rehearse or when you are rehearsing for, let's say, the Janet Jackson tour. What's that like? How long do you guys do it? That type thing.
Janet is a stickler about rehearsing, man. So we're going to rehearse at least no less than a month before we have to go out. This last tour, we rehearsed from June to August, and then the date started in August. So we had a good 2.5 months to prepare for this, But with that comes a lot of stuff because there's choreography going on.
Yeah.
We got new songs we're going over. We got new arrangements. Like, she doesn't like doing things the same every time. So each time we're switching things up. We're programming. A lot of the guys are coming in and out, programming new stuff. We got video stuff that has to be synced. So it's a lot of stuff that has to happen in that time period.
Are you guys doing like 5 days a week?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're Monday to Friday. Sometimes we go through the weekend. We might do 7 days a week, at sometimes. And then there's those times where if things are flowing really well, we'll start taking some days off and let people rest, and because it's very, very intense.
And then each day, roughly how long are you?
8 hours.
8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no less than 8 hours. Like, we're in there. I mean, even if we're not doing anything, we're there.
Earning
something,
that
yeah, but something is going on. Mm-hmm. We might be chilling while somebody's programming some stuff. She might be trying to sync things with the band and the dancers because she comes in and out all through the day. Like, most of the time we're in one room, might be in the Studio A room, and then they might be in the Studio B, and she's coming back and forth. Her and the choreographer. We tape everything that we're rehearsing. So if we get a good take on a song, we'll send it over to them, let them do the choreography to what we just recorded. So that's another thing. When you're recording stuff like that, whatever little thing you play, the dancers are going to probably react to it.
I got
So
you.
if I go boom, bam, they're gonna form a choreography around that.
Yeah.
So every little thing that I'm doing, even if I'm just playing around, if I could just be BSing in rehearsal and just like start doing stuff in between, bam, I was just playing around, but now it's gold. Now I have to do that every time now.
And it's typically her reaction or her response.
All of them.
Her call or.
I mean, that's just how we used to working with each other now. Like it's almost like they expect me to do something to add to what is already there. Like if we're doing one of her new songs from the Unbreakable record, they're not expecting that I'm going to play the song just straight down like the record. They want extra stuff to add to the show, so I'll take the liberties to just start adding things in there, and then I'll just have to remember that I did this there, because they're going to definitely dance to it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you rehearse for a month or so, something like that, and then you go out on the road. Just give us a brief rundown of what is a gig day like with Janet Jackson.
Okay, so what time do we sound check around? Probably 2 or 3, something like that each day.
Yeah.
The techs are already there, so I don't have to go there early unless I need to for myself.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that I take a tech that knows me very well.
Yeah.
So that all I got to do is sit down. Kenny Sharretts was my tech for this tour. He was A1, great guy, awesome guy. He plays drums as well, great. And, he has this ergonomic thing down. And, once we talk and he gets to feel what it is that I like and, that stuff's too high, it's too low, whatever. Because we're 2 different heights. So, we get we agree on how things are going to be, and then we, every other day we're still messing with stuff on the tour because songs change, so I got to put up different snares, or I got to change electronic programs, which is a big thing for this gig is electronics. So every song is programmed.
And so the set list does change then.
It changes sometimes, like it might just be a little 1 or 2 songs being moved or something, or it doesn't have anything to do with how long the song is, but yes, in the set list, she might switch it. Yeah. And then, likes. So then we got to switch the whole electronic program, which if you move one song, you got to like move everything, up or down from it. So it's some work for him to do, but those things happen.
Gotcha. So you do your sound check at roughly 2, you say something like that. Do you guys use that sound check almost like as another rehearsal also? In other words, you spend a good bit of time in sound check. It's not one of those 5-minute sound checks. It's like, oh, I can hear this.
Oh, no. We go through a few songs with the band first, and then she'll come in with the dancers, and we'll go over. Like every night she would do Rhythm Nation with a different troupe in every city. She'd have a troupe come up on stage. So they had to go through the choreography for Rhythm Nation. So we do that song especially every day in sound check because it was a different set of crew in every city.
So a pretty hefty sound check then you have every day. Oh, yeah. So then you've got time before the gig, right? What do you do then between the end of sound check, then we get ready for the gig? You warm up or?
Yeah, whatever it takes. Some of us chill either in the bus, tour bus, or we're not leaving the venue, so everybody stays at the venue till the show time. We have dinner there, if catering is there. If we need to go through anything extra as a band, talk about some things, really it's chill time. It's downtime for a lot of people. Stretching, that happens. Like I get stretched by the therapist there. Or I get an adjustment or, get some therapy on my leg or whatever needs to happen before, to get me ready. Some of us even do a little exercising in the arena. We'll walk the whole arena up and down as our physical, our workout for the day, just to get us warmed up. So, there's a lot of things going on with different people doing things.
Then do the show, leave the venue, and do it all again the next day, right?
Yep. And then a lot of the times, man, we're trying to get rest in between because we don't do any more than 2 shows a night, like back to back rather.
Right.
So we get that third day to rest, but she doesn't do more than 2 consecutive shows back to back.
That's nice.
Yeah,
that's very
Some people
nice,
don't.
Man.
Some people every night.
So do you still get the adrenaline rush and all that as far as this 20 years, but it's still like it's on?
Oh, yeah. When that crowd's, it's like, all right, here we go.
Nice.
I love that.
So, man, before we leave the Janet Jackson gig, just let's touch briefly on what happened last year. That the tour ended quite abruptly. With that, and I think everybody knows that it was her choice to do that, to try to start a family or to have a child. That had to be a bit of a surprise, didn't it? When it was.
Happened? I mean, we were right in the middle of like really we were really moving. Everything was oiled and the show was up and running. Everything was perfect. Like timing, everything was good. And it was right after. Well, it was during Christmas last year that we got an announcement. Because she's very private with her stuff, so she's not going to tell too many things to us. Because first of all, she doesn't want it to get out before she makes an announcement publicly. So we found out through the public, that she was canceling some dates and things like that. And we're just like, whoa, what's going on? And then, it was hearsay and a lot of speculation of what was wrong with her. And then she reached out herself and just let us know. Like, personally, she called each one of us and just said, I've decided to try to, have a family with Sam, her husband. Right. And that we would postpone it until we knew for sure what was going to happen. But, of course, they offered us like a severance pay to, tie us over for the time period that we were supposed to be on the tour, which is great. Everybody doesn't do that, or really they don't really have to, unless it's in a certain situation under insurance. Like I don't think insurance is covered with pregnancy. Yeah. If something happened to her physically or something like that on tour or whatever like that, the insurance kicks in and takes care of everything, you know. But under a situation like this, you know, it was a special situation, so, you know, insurance doesn't cover something like that.
That was incredibly kind and generous of her to offer that.
Absolutely.
You know, because that was going to be the next question I was going to ask is, I mean, you know, quite honestly, we as musicians, when we have a full calendar of stuff booked and then all of a sudden it all just goes away, I mean, naturally, you hate losing the gig, but you have to think practically also of like, oh my God, there went half of my income for that tour.
A lot of money was lost.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's everybody. Everybody took a hit, and that happens. It's a gamble out here, man. This music industry is a gamble. So you just got to be prepared for anything to happen. Save your money when you're touring. You know, I learned that early because I messed up when, you know, that first tour I did with her, I spent so much money.
Yeah.
I was just excited. I had never made that much money, you know, at that time period before. So, you know, it was a big shock to me. And I come home with half the money left, and I'm like, whoa, what did I do? You know, I was out there having a good time, and, you know, it was great. Like, we all live and learn. But after that, I said, never again will I just waste my money on tour, you know. Save it, yeah.
So let's talk. You mentioned briefly about Stevie Wonder. You did the Stevie Wonder gig last year. And one thing, I want to kind of go through the same kind of process that we did with the Janet Jackson tour, like how it's different versus how it's the same. But also one of the big things that I want to mention to the listeners who haven't or are not familiar with that tour that you did last year, you were one of two drummers that was on that gig. So before we start talking about, you know, the nuts and bolts of how it's alike or different from the Janet Jackson gig, how did you just approach playing this, you know, arena style tour with two drummers? Right. Was it kind of like the James Brown thing where just one guy would play at a time and he'd wave somebody out and the next guy would come in? Or were you guys playing, it looked like on some of the videos that I saw, you guys were playing simultaneously.
We were playing simultaneously on a lot of songs. And then there were songs where Stanley Randolph was the other drummer, who's, you know, Stevie's regular drummer. He played certain songs and I played some songs, you know. And when we did play together, we played together.
Yeah, I got it.
It wasn't a competition thing or, excuse me. And we talked about it too, like, you know, while in rehearsals and things, like how we wanted to approach doing this. Because, you know, Stevie had never had two drummers before. At least I didn't think. I've never seen it. Greg Philliganes was the music director, so of course he had things to tell us. You know, if you're doing this part, why don't you take this part? You know, because Stevie recorded multiple drum parts on his songs. You know, and he played drums on a lot of that stuff. So, you know, tom fills and in the middle of the groove. You know, so we switch it up. I say, I'll play the tom fills, you play the groove. If you go to the ride, I'm staying on the hi-hat. We're not going to play the ride at the same time, you know, like, so we found good ways to fit, you know, two drum sets in there.
So with that in mind, was Stevie particular about the parts you guys were playing as far as like trying to keep them as close to the recorded, you know, examples of the recorded songs as possible?
He didn't have to say much because we had already made that in our mind, like, we got to play this stuff like the record, you know. Yeah. And I think he really appreciated that. I think he told me one thing one time with a hi-hat pattern. You know, it's Lil John, can you play the hi-hat like, you know, so it's a little simple thing that he would probably did in the studio. And, you know, that was the only thing he ever said to either one of us.
All right, I've got to ask this question for there's a couple friends of mine that wanted me to ask you this question about this. Did you play on, when you guys did Sir Duke, did you play Sir Duke?
Yes.
Did you play those crazy triplet fills at the
Oh
at
yeah,
the end of it?
Definitely. Oh yeah. And me and Stanley would play those things together.
Love that part. So, all right, now, so we kind of established the whole thing about having two drummers on the gig. Now let's kind of go back and talk about how did you get that gig, and then, you know, how did you get in? You know, let's talk about the rehearsals and things for that. Yeah, getting prepared for that.
Well, that wasn't the first time I played with Stevie. I played with him on some other shows earlier, you know, a few years before that, with Ricky Minor, who had called me in. Ricky would call me in to come to LA and just do a bunch of stuff. You know, just if Teddy Campbell couldn't do it, who's his first call, he's there. Yeah. Great drummer and great friend of mine too.
Would it be like award show, that kind of stuff, like one-off stuff?
Yeah, or some TV shows. Like I did Ellen with him one time, and what else? We did an award show. We did a bunch of award shows with Stevie. So, I think when the time came up for this tour, Songs in the Key of Life, to come together, him and Greg Philliganes, bounced the idea of having 2 drummers play on this tour.
Okay, gotcha. And so that's how you ended up getting the gig then. And so it ended up. When you guys started rehearsing, how long was your rehearsal process before you went out on the road with Stevie?
Stevie's rehearsals aren't as long as the Janet thing.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not as much production, so it's really more about the music, and the band and him. So we had about 30 people on stage.
Yeah.
A 10-piece orchestra. You had double percussion, double drums, bass. Greg Philliganes was playing synth bass. 2 keyboard players, 6 background singers, I think. The horn section, 2 guitars. I don't know if I mentioned it, but yeah, it was like double of everything. It was like Noah's Ark.
Right. Yeah.
But it was a big ensemble, and but yeah, we didn't rehearse a whole lot. I think we rehearsed maybe a week.
Wow. Gotcha. Did you have any sequences for that show, or did you guys play any clicks or?
Oh yeah, we definitely used clicks on those songs, and then we used a lot of the record stuff too. A lot of the recording stuff that he did, because we couldn't reproduce some of those sounds, his keyboard, some of those electronic sounds that he programmed on whatever, maybe a Moog or a Prophet or OB8.
Yeah.
We had to detune some things because some of that stuff kind of after the years started waving.
Yeah.
So they had to detune some of those things and get it A440, or is that what you call it, A440?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think Stevie doesn't use A440. I think he uses something else. He tunes things differently, from what I understand. Whole nother side of technology on that. But but we did play the clicks. Even if it wasn't any pre-recorded stuff on there, he wanted to keep it close to the record tempos. So we just used it as a reference, But everybody had click, was playing to that.
Yeah.
Record tempos, that sounds divine.
John, people won't dance.
I mean, there's so many times, and I know you've been in that situation where things are just flying. Someone wants to sew up, and it's like, as a drummer especially, it's like, man, the best of the best, Quincy Jones and JR, and they found that magic tempo.
Yeah.
And for a reason it works.
It is a magic tempo.
Maybe slightly, but, man, and like some people just completely take that out of the picture, and it's like, man,
and the record doesn't sound the same.
Oh, becomes different songs a lot of times when you mess with the tempo that much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then on the normal, the typical Stevie Wonder game day, gig day type thing, you're carrying, it's almost now it's like the Stevie Wonder orchestra. You got so many people. There's probably several buses and whatnot that go. Do you have the similar kind of story as far as like the gig day, 2:00 or so sound check, that kind of thing?
And pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same thing then, and then do the show after that, and then rinse, repeat, do the same thing the next day, huh?
Yeah. Now we would get the orchestra in every city. They didn't travel with us. We hired them in every city.
Gotcha.
So we definitely go over a lot of the songs, especially for them that strings were on. That was our sound check. So we sound check pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that whoever, was new that day knew how we were going to direct stuff. It was a lot going on.
Right. Cool, man. Now, we've talked about 2 major pop R&B gigs. Now, one of your other great relationships that you had was with George Duke.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's going to be a whole different story, right? As far as the way these gigs line up and how they work. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with George, and then how those gigs and how those tours work.
It's funny.
Very different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing led to another. Mm-hmm. So when I was playing with George Howard, in the middle of playing with him, he said, "Man, I got to introduce you to Big Papa." That's what everybody called him. So I'm like, "Man, I would love to." He's like, "Yeah, George would love you, man." Because he knew what he was looking for and the style of stuff, So he's like, "You can do everything that George wants, and more. So I want y'all to meet, and you need to do that gig." So he introduced us. Right. Yeah. No problems with me. And then, as soon as me and George met, it was right away. It was like father to son kind of thing. He just took me in, or uncle to nephew, whichever way you want to look at it. And, we had so much fun together, man. It was the mutual respect that we have for each other, the camaraderie, just the way that we played when we played together was just smiles the whole time. And, if you're doing what you needed to do for a George Duke gig, he's happy. If you weren't kicking it, you would know. He would let you know.
Yeah.
George's a sweet guy, a nice guy, but if it's not happening, you're going to know, So I just made sure I was on my stuff with him.
Gotcha. So, like, say the rehearsal process when you get ready to go out with him and work with him, that's got to be a little bit different. You know? So how was that? Probably not quite as many rehearsals, maybe a little looser.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just a hang. You go to the house because we recorded a lot of the records at his house.
Okay.
And, we did some rehearsals there. Sometimes we rehearse SIR or center staging or whatever in LA. And it was pretty easy, man. I remember when we were doing the Face the Music record, Chris McBride was also a part of that, which was great for me and him to play on a record together because we had never played on a record together. And Jeff Lee Johnson, who's from Philly as well, he passed away. Great guitar player. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. I think it was just the 4 of us. If you see the album cover, you see us on the back of the album cover too. We rehearsed at Catalina's Bar and Grill.
Oh yeah, in LA.
The smaller one. No, not the one that's there now on Highland Avenue, but she had a smaller club first where everybody played at. So we rehearsed the music in front of everybody at Catalina's before we went in the studio to record it.
And people could just come and watch?
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it was just, you had to pay to come.
Sure, of course.
Right. Yeah, it was like a gig. You
Yeah.
know, we gigged for 3 nights, I think. And from the beginning of the process, from reading the charts and everything, messing up the whole nine, like, are we going to do this song again, y'all? And everybody knew what the situation was, that we're going to form this record music in front of you, so mistakes and all. Like,
cool.
Yeah, and they loved it, man. So by the second night, we were burning.
Yeah.
Third night, it was like, oh, man, we ready to go in and cut this now. But it was a great experience to do it that way in front of an audience.
Very different experience than, rehearsing for like 30 days or so, before going out with Janet Jackson or whatnot. Yeah. So what was it like then when you went on the road with George then?
Yeah.
Venues, that kind of thing?
Oh, you were doing the best jazz festivals around the world. Japan, just going to these places and seeing the reaction that they had when they saw George or heard him, it was crazy, man. Like, just to know his lineage, and from Frank Zappa days to, so much stuff that he's done, and being in that umbrella with George also gave me opportunities to work with all the other artists that he had under his umbrella. So it was Patty Austin, I worked with her, James Ingram, me and Everett Hart became really good friends. We did a great record around that same era, What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. We did all instrumental record of that stuff. All the great players on that record. Kirk Whalum. I met so many Gerald Albright, Jonathan Butler. I went to Africa for the first time with him. Just all in that same period. Just the respect that they have for someone that was working with George just carried on into their own thing. I worked with Rochelle Farrell for 17 years after that, so it was like that was like the main gate to open it up to you playing with all these different people was through George Duke.
My wife's going to be pissed now. She's a big Rochelle fan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What? Wait.
And Rochelle's from Philly too, so we had that connection as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great times with her as well.
So now with George, obviously the festivals and that, it's such he does a ton of that, but would you do anything like, say, like a Yoshi's gig where you might do multiple night kind of club?
Absolutely. And Blue Note, either in New York or Osaka. Montreux Jazz Festival. There's a great recording of us in Montreux in 96 or 97. And, I'm playing bus tours and all that kind of stuff with him, which is not an easy song to play. Mm-hmm. Dennis Chambers played that on the record. Jonathan Butler's on that. Patty Austin's on it. Rochelle Farrell is also on that. And Minu Sanelu came and sat in with us on that as well. If you see that video, it's 97 in Montreux. Minu's taking a solo on a triangle. It's phenomenal. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Did Christian do those tours too?
No, he didn't do that. Not that particular thing. Larry Kimpel was playing bass at that time. And Larry recorded a lot of the records too with George.
John, the scope of those tours, like when you were doing, say, like Yoshi's or any other jazz club, did you guys carry tech along for that as well?
One tech.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah,
it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I got you.
Well, I mean, it was a typical jazz gig. That was the approach with George. Like, it wasn't like a huge pop tour or anything like that. But I mean, it was still on that level as far as the audiences is concerned. But the production, it was get in where you fit in.
Sure, yeah. Now, along that same line, we got to talk about you working with Herbie Hancock.
Okay.
How did that come about?
Through the Stevie thing.
Okay.
But even before that, I worked with Herbie on some stuff that we did for Quincy Jones. We did a tribute to Quincy, and actually George, Herbie, and Stevie were playing keyboards together at the same time. It was nuts. It's probably on YouTube somewhere, but it was a tribute to Quincy Jones.
Gotcha.
And that was around the time that I met Herbie. And then from there, just, spot stuff. I never toured with Herbie yet.
Yeah.
There's some talks out there that could happen, but I look forward to that if I could ever play. Because I'm going to tell you, in college, Headhunter's record is what changed my whole style of playing. When I heard Chameleon, and then, I became good friends with Harvey Mason as well now.
Yeah.
When I heard Chameleon, that song alone just changed my whole process. Remember I was telling you I was trying to find a sound and, find a teacher that could actually get me there to play that stuff. That was part of that sound was, Harvey playing, Mike Clark, like those guys that were playing that funk jazz stuff. And that's what made me want to put a band together like that, Nice little visit.
Yeah, we got a visitor. What would freak me out? What would be in the back of my mind if I was playing with Herbie Hancock the entire time? And I want to ask how you deal with this. It's like, this guy, man, played with Tony back. How am I even going? And then he, played with Harvey Mason and Mike Clark.
With Miles.
And played, yeah. Just from a drumming standpoint, man, how do you rationalize that in your mind that you're working with this cat, man, that played with? A lot of people would consider Tony Williams like the greatest drummer in history.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that?
Man, I have no idea. I just say I'm blessed, and whatever I'm doing something right as far as playing wise, because there's cats out here with chops galore and all like that. But it's at the end of the day, it's really how you approach the music.
Serving it.
It's how you approach the music. Like, of course you got to have chops and stuff.
Sure.
You got to come through and play stuff, but all of those chops and stuff don't add up to the mental process of how you're going to approach playing with this legendary cat. George Benson, George Duke, Herbie Hancock, Stevie Wonder, all of them that I've worked with, I brought something to the table as far as the approach to the music.
Well, let's not lose sight of the fact that none of them were stuck with you. They wanted you,
right? Yeah,
which helps a great deal psychologically, I'm sure.
Helps a lot, yeah. That alone is like a very humbling thought, to know that, man, they hired me to come play with them. It wasn't like I didn't ask, could I come play? It was like
right. They didn't settle.
Yeah,
so
man.
That in itself is that's just a vote of confidence that people would dream of. So of course, rise to the occasion, give 110%.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Don't freeze up. You get there and you're like, okay, I'm here now.
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do?
Right.
Well, a lot of the times it's mental.
Absolutely.
It's mental, man. Like you guys could go there and play. If you got the right mentality, you can get through that gig. If you play the right stuff, but the way that you're thinking, how you're approaching that gig means everything.
Right. Well, one of the terms that we like to kick around when we've done shows on this type of subject is that, just like you said, anybody over a period of time can amass chops. Man, you can sit in a practice room all day long with a practice pad or a drum set, and you can amass chops. But the whole thing has to do with your musical depth and your experience that you can bring to a gig, because all the chops in the world does not get you musical depth.
No way.
No
way. And there's so many different styles of stuff that you're playing with those kind of cats. I mean, George will pull out a straight ahead song in a minute, and then he'll go to some straight funk stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Then he'll
Dime.
Then he'll pull a fusion song out like Bus Tours or Rush Hour, you know, which is in 5 and then changes into 9, and like, hey man, don't forget he played with Zappa. Like anything could happen in those type situations. So you got to be ready and prepared to play whatever. You know, it might be a bossa nova, it might be a you know, like some Brazilian, you know, or African, you know, vibe song, or he did so many different styles of music. So you had to be versatile,
right,
in your styles. So
we've talked a lot about, you know, the touring gigs and the big gigs, and it's not unknown to our listeners that we do this show in Atlanta, and you live in Atlanta with us here. So what do you do during the downtime? Like, what do you do, like when you come in off the road, because you do spend a good amount of time away from here, but when you are here, what do you do?
Absolutely nothing.
I like it.
Yeah.
Can we say rest, man? I'm chilling, man. Like, spend some time with my family, whatever like that, of course. But man, the downtime is really my time to just reload, man, recharge. Because I know, like, right now in like a week or so, I got a crazy little schedule that's happening before Christmas. You know, at least 3 or 4 shows that I have to do where I'm learning music too as well. So it's not like something that I've been playing a while. Like, this is new music that I'm getting ready to approach again. So right now I'm just really just relaxing. I told you I did a detox last week. So, you know, I'm recovering from that. And just, you know, taking it easy, man. Just taking everything in. I like simple things, man. I'll go to the movies. I'll go whatever. Just take a hike in the park somewhere, you know, whatever, just something that's away from the music. Like right now, like that, how quiet it is in here, I love that.
Well, now I noticed that you mentioned when we were talking earlier that you do a little bit of teaching though, as well. So do you, when you're here in town, do you maintain like any kind of a schedule, or do people just come to you as a kind of like an as needed basis?
Yeah, people hit me up. You know, they have my emails out. I put my email out there. So, you know, if some people hit me and like, hey, if you're gonna be home around this time, you know, I'd love to come and get with you, whatever. So yeah, I take students like whenever. You know, it's not like a consistent basis, but periodically I take people to teach.
When somebody comes to you, and let's say they don't necessarily have a very specific thing that they like, you know, they might come and ask you very specific things about gigs that you do. But if they don't have that, what is something that you say, look, I'm going to show you this, and you need to be working on this? What's something in particular that you like to impart upon students?
Well, most of the time I tell them stuff that helps me and helps me get the kind of gigs that I get and stuff. I mean, from groove stuff, I start with groove first. Yeah. Like, before we even go to rudiments and all that kind of stuff, play a groove for me. You know, let me hear how you sound first. And that's the main thing for me, because, you know, a lot of my gigs I get called for is because of the groove, you know, and the fact that I can groove. So I tell them, because a lot of the students that I get will ask me, like, can you show me what it takes to get a gig like what you're doing? You know, okay, so this is what I have to do. You know, and I'll put timing, you know, I'll play a click track, or I'll play a song for them and see how they sound playing to the song. I'm like, this is what you're going to have to do if you're on stage with such and such or whatever, you know, play to this. Let me see how you groove with this, how you lock in with the tracks or whatever, you know. So a lot of that is what I teach. You know, rudimental stuff, cool. You know, I'm not that rudimental guy. You know, I'm not one of the, what's the big marching corps bands? I'm not that guy at all. So
you're not marching snare with Santa Clara next week?
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I would totally fail on the snare with that. Man. But, you know, I show them the stuff that I do know, and it seems to work, especially if I have a chance to be with them more than one lesson. I see the progression that comes. And if they do what they're supposed to do when they go home and come back to me, I see the progress.
Excellent, man. Yeah, I think one thing that's kind of interesting that you mentioned was talking about playing with, like, you know, clicks and metronomes and that kind of stuff. again, another thing that we've talked about on this show before is, man, back when I was in school, if somebody had told me then that, man, in 25 years, basically every gig you're going to do,
it's going to be the
it's
click.
going to be to a click, I'd say you're crazy. But I mean, man, that has gotten to a point now to where everything, when I teach, every single thing that I do, even if it is rudimental stuff, man, I'll have them play with a click. And it's because of one of those things that, you know, you were very fortunate in some ways, man, that first gig or that first time that you started rehearsing with Janet Jackson, man, that you were able just to get in there and play with the click.
Yeah. Thank God I was practicing metronomes at school first.
Exactly.
I mean, like I said, I had never done a gig that I had to follow a click to. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that because I was Monica and Escape, that stuff, we were playing the tracks and stuff, but it wasn't on that level of production, like, you know, having the in-ears, and I had never had in-ears before. Yeah. So this is my first time, like, getting into all of the things that come with playing a gig like that.
Yeah, that in itself, man, if you're forced to play with the clicker sequences and then you're using in-ear monitors, and if you're not familiar with those, man, that's actually two things you got to deal with, learning how to deal with in-ear monitors.
That's
and
a
then
big shock.
that.
That's a big shock. You're like, what is this? Oh, no, I'm hearing stuff on my left ear and stuff on my right.
Yeah. And I mean, at this point now, man, I can't do anything without in-ear monitors. I've got to have them now, you know. You know. So, John, are you still active in the studio? Do you do a good bit of studio work?
Oh yeah. I mean, I get record sessions still. Like it's almost like, because I used to go to LA all the time in the '90s, especially. I was getting called a lot to just fly to LA, do the record, and come home. Now, you know, technology has changed. Now a lot of cats will just send you the files now, so it's easy to do that now. When I'm this downtime like this, if I have a project that I need to do, I go in the studio, cut the stuff, send it right back, you know, and it's that easy now. So, you know, the budgets have changed. So there's people used to pay flights, you know, the hotel, they put me up in a nice hotel, they give me a car for the week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I would be there for like a week, and then somebody else would call and say, I heard you're in town, you know, can you stay an extra week? I would be in LA for almost a month just because of one session, you know, and then they find out I'm in town and just other cats start calling. So it was like, that was a good time period.
I'd say. So in town, where do you have your own space, or do you?
No, I have a studio that I work out of.
Okay.
Yeah. So in an engineer, he actually did my record that I put out 2 years ago, which we talk about too, the Heartbeat. Mm-hmm. So he engineered it. Raheem Amlani is his name. And so ever since then, you know, I've been going over there and just cutting the stuff with him. We have like a great chemistry now, and, you know, we go out there and cut a song in an hour, you know.
So when you are here in town, then obviously you've got the studio, which is super convenient, man, where you can just call upon and go do that. Yeah. Do you, with where you live now, man, do you have access to practice? Like, do you have a place to practice at your place, or do you?
I have a flat here, so I can't play drums in there. My neighbors will kill me. Yeah. But I have practice pads in there. I can use those whenever I want to. But then I go to, you know, crossover studios or wherever.
Gotcha.
Those are my boys. I've been going there for 20 years since I moved here. And, you know, he'll give me a room there for cheap or whatever. So, you know, sometimes free if it's not busy. You know, so I'll go and do things like that as far as for practicing and stuff.
Gotcha.
Cool. Like before this tour started with Janet, I was in that room a good bit before I went and started rehearsing with her, just so I could start
getting tunes under you.
Yeah, because I mean, it was a whole record of new stuff that I needed to go over, and, you know, touch up on the old stuff too. Mm-hmm. You know, I never feel like I've practiced enough. I mean, I need to practice now. You know, you can never practice too much.
So quick question: being in town, you're in town a lot. If our friend Tyrone Jackson calls you and says, "Man, I got this little trio gig. Let's do it. Straight ahead. Let's do it."
Oh yeah, Tyrone Jackson. Hell yeah, man, that guy right there. We just played with Larry Colton together this weekend, and if you don't know Tyrone Jackson, he's one of the most amazing jazz. You know, I'll just say jazz, but he plays everything. Right. But mainly jazz pianists in Atlanta. He's one of the best. Him and Louis Harivel, and there's a few other cats, Phil Davis as well. But Tyrone Jackson is amazing on piano. So if he called me for a trio gig, I'm there, man.
You know it's going to kill.
Yeah. And, you know, and I haven't played straight ahead in a while. So this weekend, woke me up on that again because Larry pulled out some songs that we were doing, that was traditional straight ahead songs.
Nice.
So it was cool to play that again.
Awesome.
So we're going to start wrapping some things up here in a few minutes, but for our gearhead listeners out there, let's talk a little bit tell us about what you're playing, gear, like as far as drums, cymbals, heads, sticks.
Okay. So first 10 years of my career, I was with Pearl Drums, who was my favorite drum set of all. I love Pearl since I was a kid. So it was great, just to have that endorsement at that time. And then, things move on, business changes. So you have, you go to another company. So I went with, actually in between the going from Pearl to Tama, I was with Innovation Drums. And that's Steve Bedelement. I had to give him a shout out. He flew a drum set here to me that he made. And I thought that was the most kindest things for somebody to do. I mean, because I think he checked it. He checked it in baggage.
Wow.
He checked the whole drum set. Like, that's how he brought it here. Back then, you could still kind of do that at the airports. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think you want to take a drum set through the airport anymore. But, yeah, he pulled the whole drum set. Toms, like, what was it, 10, 12, 14, 16, the snare, the kick drum. Kick drum is huge. It's 22 by, like, 20 or something like that. Yeah. And he brought it to me, and we set it up at my house at the time. And I'm like, man, these drums are amazing. And he'd always say, these are the Lamborghinis of the drums.
Yeah.
You met Steve before?
No, I haven't met him.
He's out of Detroit, and he was hand making these drums himself. And, he had Lenny White has a set, myself, Chris Dave, Gerald Hayward had one.
Who's that guy? Cats. Somebody plays with CC. That guy was playing some of that.
Oh, okay.
Larnell Detroit guy, I think.
Yes.
I heard he had a snare drum
Liddell
one night.
Liddell Abrams. Yeah,
Ooh,
he plays with
sounded great.
He plays with Charlie Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
he has. Yeah, I've seen a snare. I haven't seen his whole set, but he definitely still takes the snare around with him.
Yeah, that was it because it's a backline kit.
Okay.
He had that snare drum and it was killer.
That drum set is amazing. I still have it. So in between the endorsement with Pearl and Tama, I did the Innovation Drums for a while. And I just needed to be with a bigger, production company and all like that. So Tama reached out. Brian Fraser Moore is a good friend of mine from Philadelphia, and he actually told him, like, John is looking for another major company to come to. So they reached out to me. So shouts out to Brian for, making that link happen. 20 years with Remo. I've played their heads, nobody else. I mean, I've tried to play other heads. I'm not mentioning no names, but my sound and everything that I look for works with Remo heads.
Gotcha. Just stepping back with the drums for a minute, do you have like kits and lockers like in LA and then like maybe one in Europe somewhere or anything like that?
No, I just use the backline stuff in LA.
Gotcha.
Like I don't have a kit of my own out there.
So much great stuff available.
Yeah, they got everything. Yeah. But here I have most of my drum sets are in storage, and I kind of rotate 2 or 3 of them, just around town and stuff.
Gotcha. What about your cymbals?
I was with Sabian for 20 years as well. Uh-huh. And I'm a big fan of like loyalty, and between the companies and you, it's like, some cats get it twisted and feel like, oh, I'm gonna try to get this endorsement, that endorsement, and it's just endorsement whores, man. Basically,
yeah.
I never wanted to be an endorsement whore. It's like once I found out what it was that I liked, I stuck with that. And if anything, I would only leave if some business wasn't right or something, So, but the relationship between me and the company, I've always tried to keep the loyalty with those companies. Vader drumsticks. I met Vader when I was at Berklee. I met the guys that started Vader because they were doing Vic Firth sticks first.
Oh, okay.
They were manufacturing Vic Firth sticks first.
Yeah.
And one of my boys that's there with Vader now, Johnny. I'd go to Jack's drum shop, which was up the street from the school, and go in there and do, drum shop talk and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, man, you need to come over and play some Vaders. And that was back then, like 92, I guess. And Vader was just getting started and all. I think they were just getting started around that time, but he was bragging about Vader sticks. And I'm like, nah, I'm with Vic Firth. I'm cool, And just later down the line, I wind up, signing with Vader. And it's been maybe 15 years now with them. So I've, just to show you the longevity that I've had with the companies that I'm with.
That's admirable. There's a lot of guys, you're right, that just jump.
Oh, they just jumping left and right. I'm like, man, sit down somewhere for a while. And it's crazy because these companies do talk about their endorsers, and they're like, okay, well, what do you feel about John? What do you feel about Phil? These Japanese companies especially, they all make the drums, so they're all sitting around having tea and stuff and laughing about us, like. He's not loyal, and Japanese are very serious about loyalty, and they really respect somebody that, that is loyal to their company. Like I was getting ready to go from Tama and go back to Pearl at one point. I wanted to just because, like I said, Pearl was my first love. And it just didn't fit, Now, I don't know what they've changed in their makes or whatever, in their wood or whatever like that, but it's not the sound that I was remembered when I played like the Masters series and all that kind of stuff back in the 90s. So, I let them know, thank you so much for the offer. Sent the email to those guys, and they sent it right back to me and said, thank you for your loyalty. Thank you for, being a straight up guy. Basically, like, I told them that I didn't have any problems at Tama, Tama might not know about that, but, hey, we don't have to talk about those kind of things, but they'll know after they hear this that,
Sure.
You'll get offers from other companies all the time. If it's a competition, that's just how it goes. And it's just you have to, be, you have to have some integrity and say, hey, man, I don't have any problems with the company I'm with already, so I'm going to just stick with them. It's like having a girl or wife or whatever, It's the same thing. Like, do you want your wife or do you want your wife and the other three that's hanging on the side trying to holler at you too?
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm content with my wife, So same thing goes with these endorsements, man. I tell all these young guys, like, find something that you really love, and stick with it and grow with them as a family. Anything could change, it could change for the better. Or if it doesn't change for the better, then that's when you decide, okay, I need to move on to something else.
Yeah. So, man, you alluded a few minutes ago that you recorded your own album. You have your own solo album you put out a couple years ago, Heartbeat.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Anything else aside from, tell us a little bit about that, and then anything else that you've got going on that you would like to promote for the folks out there?
So finally, I decided to do my own project. After doing so many other people's stuff, I'm 44 now, and I didn't have a record of my own out. I'm like, Harvey Mason, all those guys had records of their own, even when they were playing with Herbie and all these other people. So I said, I broke down and said, let me go ahead and do my own project. And it did great. I put it out 2 years ago. It's called The Heartbeat. It's on iTunes. Got a lot of great players on there, a lot of great singers that are, like really doing well now. Robert Glasper's on there, good friend of mine. George Duke actually played his last recording on my record.
Wow.
He did the file, he played the stuff, recorded it, and sent it to me, not knowing that I didn't know at the time that he was sick.
Yeah.
He didn't tell me nothing or anything. And, next thing I know, he passes away. And I talked to Eric Zobler later on. He's like, did you know that your record was the last thing George recorded before he left? I was like, wow, man. Like, and listening to his solos on the song, it's called In a Duke Kind of Way, I titled it. He's doing a Moog solo at the end, man. He's just crying on the Moog, man. You hear it, you're just like, it's a voice, man. It just sounds so like spiritual, like it was almost saying like, I'm out of here, little bro. I'm gonna give you this before I leave,
That's got to mean a lot to you, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other gigs or dates or anything you want to talk about before we finish up?
Well, if you're in Atlanta on New Year's Eve, I'm having a party.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So that'll be fun. I'm gonna play with a band as well and everything. 617 Social Club is called. When is this coming out? Is this coming out anytime soon?
But prior to that, it will.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, you'll be able to make that gig.
Okay.
Yeah. That's down by the Varsity, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
across
I know
the
where
street.
it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you got a lady or whatever like that, you want to come down, hang out, and we'll be there.
Yeah.
It's a cigar bar on the other side, so if you smoke cigars, you could do that too.
Gotcha. So before we wrap up, any words of wisdom you'd like to give to any musicians, young or old, out there?
Basically just stick to your guns. have a goal in mind, work towards something, be cool. It's not hard to just be cool in this industry. Maybe it is for some people, but I would suggest that people just be cool, get along with others. The competition is there, but there's room for everybody. A lot of these cats coming up, they all feel like they have to have some type of, animosity towards each other. I don't know why, but it gets to the point where it's just not cool anymore. Like after you get off the drums, you still have to be a human being, so, you might be a great player, but a jerk as a human being.
Yeah.
You got to talk to people. You got to get along with folks. Like all of that stuff is like a package deal for a musician to have, and it's good, because people like to be around folks that are cool, A lot of cats get gigs off of the fact that they're just a cool individual.
Yeah, we talk about it. Like, can I be on a bus with this guy?
That's
Right.
exactly right, man.
Yeah. Nobody wants to deal with a jerk, man, especially on tour. Like every day you have to see this person, like, oh man. And there's times where it's always there's one bad apple in the group that's just like, God.
Makes that bus feel like a VW, man.
Yeah.
As soon as they come around, everybody cringes like,
Well, speaking to drummers especially, man, we're such a fraternal bunch. My best friends are drummers, and the small percentage of you guys out there that aren't looking at it that way need to get it together, because
most of us are cool with each other.
Yeah, man, and it's we all benefit from that on a million levels too.
Yeah.
So
And the mutual respect and everything means a lot. But yeah, I would tell people to just, definitely work towards your goal. It's not going to be put in your lap, so you got to go for it. A lot of people ask me, man, how do I get a gig? How do you get a gig? Go out and play at these places where you might get seen. Yeah. It's nobody's going to come knocking on your door to give you a gig. Do some of these shows where you might not be getting paid as much. You might not get paid at all on some of this stuff, but all of those things add up. I did all of that stuff, man, especially back in Boston. I did a lot of gigging around town just so that I could be noticed and seen. There's so many musicians out here, man. It's like, how am I going to stand out from the rest?
And,
you got to have something that stands out, and you got to put yourself in the right places to be seen.
And social media hype, man, there's a million people doing that.
Yeah.
If you go out and play.
And that social media hype better add up to what you're doing.
No doubt. Yeah. Oftentimes it doesn't.
I'm going to say most of the time.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
That little 15-second clip ain't enough.
Yeah.
Somebody come see you at a full show, you better do something, if you're really trying to get out there.
Good stuff, man.
John, you've been great, man.
Man, it was a pleasure to be here, man.
Let me tell you, we consider ourselves a serious show from the standpoint of imparting some knowledge on some folks, but we like to have fun on here also. And I'm going to spring something on you here before we leave. We're going to take 1 minute, and I like to call it the Drummers Weekly Groove Cast Rorschach test. And so I've done this on an interview before. I made just a few little quick yes or no questions that I just want to run past you real quick. I don't want you to think about them, man.
All right.
I just want you.
First reaction.
First reaction. Okay.
All right.
So we will take these results and we will send them to our think tank and have you analyzed after this.
Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Don't think too much about this.
Okay. I'll try not to.
All right. John, start the clock. Are you ready?
Ding.
Wood tip or nylon tip?
Wood.
Stax or Motown?
Stax.
Good answer. What's your favorite TV show?
Right now, Insecure.
When you're touring, bus or plane?
Plane.
In-ears or wedges?
In-ears.
For barbecue, pork or beef?
Neither. I'm a pescatarian.
PC or Mac?
Always Mac.
Think carefully on this next one. Eagles or Falcons?
Eagles all day.
Click track or nothing?
Click track.
Elvin or Tony?
Tony.
Hard cases or bags?
Hard case. I want to save my shit.
Yes, sir.
Name an underrated drummer.
Ooh. Dang, it's so many. Kenwood Denard.
Worst traffic, Atlanta or Philadelphia?
Atlanta.
George Clinton or Isaac Hayes?
George Clinton.
Most important question, Pats or Geno's?
Pats, baby.
Right on. John, it's been a pleasure, man.
My
Thank
pleasure,
you, man.
man.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right,
Remember, guys,
Yeah.
monumental talent, incredibly humble, major success. Think about it.
Work ethic, man, too.
Yes, sir.
Preparation, work ethic, and be a good person. You've heard us say it a million times. Lil John Roberts just illustrated it. We'll see you guys next week. Every Monday, we have a new show coming out. We'll see you soon.
Peace.
Bye-bye. So there you have it. There's Lil John Roberts on the Drummers Weekly Groovecast. I'll tell you this, the three of us, we had a great time sitting here hanging out, talking about drums and about the music business and what it takes to be successful. We really hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. If that's the case, please do us a favor. We'd be forever grateful to you that the next time you go into iTunes to either stream or download the show, please leave us a short review. Doesn't have to be anything extravagant, doesn't have to be anything long, just a sentence or two, and if you could give us 5 stars, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it, because we certainly do appreciate you listening, and we love bringing you the show every week. With that in mind, you can subscribe to us on all of your favorite podcast apps. You can, of course, get us at iTunes, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean. A new show comes out every Monday, and please stay in touch with us. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions on the show. You can reach us at our Gmail email account, which is drummersweeklygroovecast@gmail.com. You can reach us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/drummersweeklygroovecast. And you can tweet us at our Twitter account, twitter.com/DWGroovecast, or just at DWGroovecast. All right, guys, thanks for listening. We appreciate you. And until next week, we're going to leave you with a little bit of Lil John Roberts playing with George Duke. See you then. Bye-bye.